What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So a quick heads up, over the next few days, Thursday and Friday, there won't be normal news waves. Of course, tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the US, and I figured Evan, who spends all night editing these things, these news waves, can take some time off and spend it with the family. We'll be back here on Monday as usual, but I will still have some stuff for you guys, okay? In the mornings and stuff, we'll still have videos. However, today, though, we still have a bunch of stuff to go over, which does include more details around Sony's big deal, the potential of them acquiring Kadokawa, and how all that's sort of coming together behind the scenes. We also have Nintendo announcing an interesting shutdown in a certain part of the world. And then we do have, out of nowhere yesterday evening, actually a departure from Sony. One of the OGs at PlayStation is moving on. All of that and more. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Sony and their 30 years of PlayStation, as they did actually stand up a website that goes over all the different generations, some fun facts, and even sales numbers that had some controversy pop up online. But we can actually see just the website here in general. It's the 30th anniversary, 30 years of play. At the top, they have PlayStation, PS2, PSP, PS3, PS Vita, PS4, PSVR, PS5, and PSVR2. It's a lot of fun to go through this. They show different highlights of the sales numbers for each system. They show some of the unique facets of that era, some of the games that we all remember. It's a fun walk down memory lane here, especially if you were someone who's been with the company since the original PlayStation. You could see how they sort of evolved throughout the years. The big thing, though, was the PS2 with the sales numbers being at 160 million, as that was an updated figure that Jim Ryan threw around not too long ago. Seems to be now etched in stone and official with Sony. I did a video sort of looking at that and sort of the reaction online, so check that video out as it is up on the channel. But a really cool site to go through and, like I said, relive some of the old days of PlayStation. Also, we have some good news for Witcher fans who are anticipating The Witcher 4, which is being built on Unreal Engine 5, as we can see this is posted up and transcribed by VGC. Where they say, I'm pleased to announce that several weeks ago, it moved to full-scale production. This is from the chief financial officer, and it was during a quarterly earnings results that CD Projekt had here. The code name for it is Polaris, and there are now questions around how long this is going to take. Well, they say of all of our projects, this one is currently the most far along, and we're starting the most intensive phase of development. I wish to thank the team, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for further progress. So it being now in full-scale production phase is people hoping that this is something that will get out before the end of this generation with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series. Although Microsoft might move a little earlier, so maybe it won't get out there just before Microsoft, say, moves on. Just, again, early, like late 2026, early 2027 for them. I'm thinking Witcher 4 would be like a late 2027 release. Witcher 3 was a big game. I'm sure people who played through it are like, okay, wow, how much bigger is this one going to be? How long is it going to take to develop? They are using Unreal Engine, so there is at least middleware that is well known, so it does make hiring and bringing people on in contracting positions a bit easier. So in this case, I'm estimating late 3 years or so for it to finish up in full-scale production from now to release. So here's hoping they don't have any bumps in the road or something that really throws them off, because I am really curious to see what this game will end up looking like, especially on Unreal Engine 5. Oh, and we also have some good news for people on PlayStation Network that want to buy the classic titles rather than have to subscribe to PlayStation Premium, which is something that's been going on for certain titles. However, out of nowhere, it seems like games like Dino Crisis, being a big one, are now just up for sale. This, we can see, was posted up. This is by Eurogamer, who seemed to notice this, saying that Dino Crisis and Resident Evil Director's Cut are now just available to purchase. So if you don't have that PlayStation Plus Premium subscription, doesn't matter. You can just add it to your library, or, interestingly enough, if you have already purchased them in the past, it'll just be added to your library at this time. So I guess if you bought it on, I don't know, the PS3 or the Vita or something like that, it'll just be there linked to your account, and you can fire it right up. So this is good news. I'm not really sure what the deal was there with Capcom. Maybe it was some timed exclusivity thing with Sony just to lock it to the PlayStation Plus Premium, or maybe there's just some logistics behind the scenes they were figuring out. But it seems like either way, it's been figured out, and you can now purchase them a la carte just straight up for $10 each. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and this apparent acquisition that's being explored right now between them and Kadokawa, who of course also owns majority stake FromSoft. And there's a lot of stuff when it comes to distribution of anime, but for gaming, we immediately look at FromSoft and a lot of the stuff they've been doing over the last, we'll say, decade at this point, and how big of a deal that would be for Sony and PlayStation. Well, we did get a bit more insight into how all this is going down with new details emerging out of Bloomberg, and once again, Takashi Machizuki, who's actually been on fire recently with some of his reporting as he's pushing out article after article after article covering different things with Sony. We just talked about the handheld, and now we can see this report where he starts by saying they've been testing the waters for a potential combination for years, but never quite resolved differences over the degree of commitment. Tokyo-based Kadokawa wants its city neighbor, Sony, to buy it entirely or not at all, while Sony has long sought to surgically extract assets related to anime and video games. I mean, yes, there is a lot of, I'm sure, expenditures that would come with Kadokawa that Sony's not as interested in compared to, hey, can we just get like some of your gaming stuff like FromSoft, and we can get some of the anime stuff we can line up with Crunchyroll and some of the other things we're doing here, and it'll just fit together nice and neat. And we won't maybe have to figure out what to do with all these other sectors that you have that really don't work out with us. As what we see with big acquisitions at times, especially in like the US when it happens, a bunch of layoffs follow immediately. Things are a little different in Japan, so I'd be curious to see how that would work out exactly if Sony did just outright buy everything there with Kadokawa. Goes on to say Kadokawa has over the years attracted the attention of Microsoft, Tencent, and South Korea's Kakao Corp. One investor joked that Miyazaki alone can be worth at least a third of Kadokawa's market value, as he is capable of producing massive hits one after another. The path to a deal looks harder today than a week ago. Reports about Sony's interest spiked Kadokawa's shares, pushing its market value to $4.1 billion. Which, yeah, that's one of the major reasons they would try to hide and just keep this very quiet, the entire idea of them going back and forth for a deal, because now it makes it even harder since you got to spend more money if the shares jumping so much in value. But it is interesting since this does paint the picture that Kadokawa has actually kind of been approaching Sony about this, and we already sort of went over the fact that the original founding family has kind of moved away from Kadokawa, and you're left with executives and people at the top maybe look around and go, oh wow, can we sell this now that, I mean, at this point, FromSoft has got to be at their all-time high after Elden Ring, and even making Armored Core, and I mean, Armored Core 6 did incredible compared to what the lineage has been in terms of sales for that franchise. So it's like FromSoft can pretty much do no wrong with their releases at this point, which was not always the case back in the day. They did make Ninja Blade. But still, now we have a very strong FromSoft. They also control a ton when it comes to anime distribution, which Sony is looking for. So I mean, yeah, if you're Kadokawa and you already have this relationship with Sony, you go, I wonder if we can just cash in now and make a bunch of money from it. And Sony is probably thinking, well, if Tencent's looking at this along with some other entities, it might be time to make the move so we don't lose at that point Kadokawa and FromSoft to someone like Tencent. So interesting stuff here, but the fact that more of this is getting out there and it seems like it is progressing, it does make me think that before the end of the year, we probably will have some sort of press release go out that, yes, Sony has figured out how to acquire Kadokawa, and there might be financing involved or something, but yes, Sony, people are curious. Sony, I feel like, can get it done if they want to, but it does make me wonder what they would do with a lot of the extra baggage that would come along with Kadokawa with the gaming and the anime sector. But we'll keep an eye on this as it continues to evolve seemingly every week or so now as more and more information is coming out. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo announcing a bit of an interesting closure here, and it's one I didn't necessarily expect because it is in China, but we did see Nintendo really try to make their way into the Chinese market with the Switch in 2019 after they partnered with Tencent. But then this was actually noticed. This was noticed by Eurogamer first that I saw, but it was a notification that Nintendo sent out. And it says, announcement on the adjustment of Nintendo Switch network service operation in China. The Nintendo Switch in China will gradually stop the Nintendo eShop and other network-related operating services starting March 31st, 2026 to May 15th, 2026. At the same time, to thank you for your continued use and support, we are now launching a reward plan for all Nintendo Switch users in China. Now, they go over some of the dates here. Starting March 31st, the eShop will stop selling games and tool software. After this date, free trial games and free tool software will no longer be available. As of May 15th, the eShop will just stop download services and redemption code redemption services. And except for the Nintendo eShop, other network-related services will be terminated on May 15th. Now, in order to compensate users there, they do go over an entire list of games. They mention 4 downloadable Nintendo games or tool software for free through the Game Redemption WeChat applet. So, hey, I guess if you're over there in China and you're seeing all this happen in real time, figure out how to do this, because they have actually a number of high-quality titles here. You can see the list. It's like Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Party, Kirby Star Allies, new Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Go, Let's Go Pikachu, and Let's Go Eevee. So again, if you're affected by this in China, I would try to claim a bunch of these titles. They say 4 downloadable games. Now, people are trying to figure out why exactly is this happening, and there's been some back and forth. The idea that I guess the provider or service provider, network provider, is their contract or something with them has expired, and they haven't been able to re-up it or figure things out. For at least for now, they're shutting things down in 2026. I don't know if it's possible that they figure something out there and maybe they don't have to shut it down, but at least for now, I would operate under that assumption. And also, there were some headlines going around that were like, I pretty misleading, I think, because it came up and said Nintendo is shutting down the eShop. And it was just, I looked at it and said, really, for the Switch? And then it would link to something like this. Oh, it's in China. So no, the shutdown is not necessarily just the entire eShop on the Switch. It's just specifically in China. But still, it is odd to see this after Nintendo went through such lengths to get the Switch into China, and that being a big market right now for gaming, as we're seeing it be extreme, like even an emerging one after games like Black Myth Wukong absolutely exploded there in terms of sales. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in that region for gaming, and it just seems strange that Nintendo is running into this situation where they have to shut down the eShop there for their current platform. But who knows, maybe they figure something out in the future and attempt to re-enter the market with some new eShop deal or something in the future, so we'll see. Next up, let's talk about a big departure at PlayStation. Someone who's been at Sony for 31 years, which we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of PlayStation. Do the math. Yeah, they were there since the beginning, before PlayStation officially launched, helped to launch that system, and then subsequently all the other ones after that. And that's Shuhei Yoshida. He shared this in an interview on PlayStation blog. We can see this posted up. And this was a question asking about an announcement he had to make. He said, yes, I do have one. I'm leaving Sony Interactive Entertainment on January 15, 2025. It's like announcing the launch date of a new game, something I haven't done for a long time. He goes on to say, I've been with PlayStation from the beginning, and this is my 31st year. And when I hit 30 years, I was thinking, it might be time for me to move on. The company's been doing great. I love PS5. I love the games that are coming out on this platform. And we have new generations of management who I respect and admire. And I'm so excited for the future of PlayStation. So, PlayStation is in really good hands. I thought, okay, this is my time. And as I was reading through this interview, it's so like Shuhei Yoshida that when asked about what's a memorable moment that he had in his tenure at PlayStation, he brings up an indie game, brings up Journey and how that won Game of the Year at the DICE Awards in 2012. He's just thinking back on that time period. He really likes indie games. And that was the big thing he was doing at PlayStation, although he did help to see many big games that you're thinking of right now with PlayStation over the last several decades, right? Big AAA games from first-party studios and stuff, but he still comes back to the indie games. And what's interesting about this? He doesn't necessarily, he's retiring. He says he's leaving PlayStation. Like this, sure, this will be a good time, right? Okay, 30 years, he's been at, like I said, 31 years, 30 years for PlayStation, and they're getting to a point now where we're hearing the stuff about PS6. It's like, I don't necessarily want to be here for the start of the next generation cycle if I can cut it off here and go do something else maybe. And that's the question. Is he going somewhere else, or is he just now stepping away from games completely? He still seems to really like indie games, so I don't know, maybe he goes and consults at an indie game studio. Some people were already speculating, would he go and do indie game relations with Nintendo? I don't know. I feel like there's still loyalty for Shuhei to PlayStation and Sony, to where that would be kind of weird to be like, oh, I'm gonna go over to Nintendo now. It's like, it seems like he's blue brand for life, if you want, with how he would look at this. But maybe he wants to go off and do some things with smaller indie titles, even going back and forth as a consultant, someone who goes in and talks about their games and can just go from studio to studio to studio and do what he really likes to do, which is talk about indie games. Wow, what a legacy there at PlayStation for Shuhei Yoshida. Again, he'll be leaving in January, so hey, good for him. That's quite the mark to leave in gaming. Not even just PlayStation, just gaming in general. So we'll see, I guess, what he has up next, if anything. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Game Awards, specifically Game of the Year, and one title in particular that people have had a lot of conversations around, and that's not Shadow of the Erdtree, it's actually Balatro, which it is funny to see people talk like, hey, why is this game here? It's a card game. And they buy it and they come back like, hey, I'm sorry, it's actually a really good game. And that's been ongoing on social media. And in fact, something I mentioned was that's kind of a cascading effect, because then people look and go, huh, what makes that game so good? I'm gonna go check it out. And it seems like at least their entry into the Game of the Year nominations has had a very positive impact on their sales. We can see this chart. This is shared over on Pocket Gamer, who says November 18th was the day Balatro was nominated for 5 awards at Jeff Keighley's Game Awards 2024, including Game of the Year and Best Mobile Game. And, well, you can see the chart on November 18th. He has the second most lucrative on mobile to date. They earned $727,000 since the announcement in that week for the Game Awards. So yes, for a smaller game like Balatro, in terms of like it's a smaller indie title, I mean, it's like one person who made it or something. Yeah, that's a big deal to be alongside of these AAA giants, we'll say, in gaming. I mean, you see, I get it. People look at Balatro, it doesn't look like Shadow of the Erdtree. It doesn't look like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Really any of them, you know? But it has that gameplay loop on lock. I mean, really, if you go try it now, if you have even any kind of semblance of poker, or you start playing it and you look over to like, how have I been playing this for 4 hours now? It is like that. It's highly addictive. It's a lot of fun. And they've said over and over again, yeah, we're not doing microtransactions, nothing like that. In fact, they're just kind of throwing extra content in there. Some fun things when it comes to dressing up the cards and stuff, crossing over with other franchises. It's just kind of a lot of fun that they're having there. So they're not going to be able to make up more money than they did previously unless they get nominated in something like this. And this is a high watermark for them to be in Game of the Year contention just in general. And it's having a pretty good impact there on their sales. So hey, good for them to see Balatro get this kind of positive impact in terms of their presence in gaming, but also just sales in general, because yeah, you assume that would probably fuel their next project. And if it's anything like Balatro, maybe it'll happen all over again at the Game Awards years from now. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We ask, if Sony ends up acquiring Kadokawa, will FromSoft's follow-up release to Elden Ring be multi-platform? 60% say no, 40% say yes. Okay. So I'm kind of looking at this similar to how they treated Bungie. If this happens, right? We still don't know if this acquisition is going to go through or be a thing. Let's just say for a moment it does. What happens to the follow-up to Elden Ring that is going to be highly anticipated and very, very lucrative if it's on as many platforms as possible? I feel like in this case, because it's viewed as a multi-platform release, most likely, especially if they tap Elden Ring's name again, you just treat it like they have with Bungie. Marathon's going to be on multiple different platforms. Yes, I know that's a live service game, so it's a little different in that regard. They look for as many people as possible to get on board. But like in this case, they should try to get this on Nintendo's platform as well, which Sony did, right, with Horizon, their Lego game. I kind of think that Elden Ring, the follow-up, will continue to be on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and even Nintendo's next system if they can make it happen. So I don't think it's in that realm of, oh, they're cutting everything off just yet, but surely they will have FromSoft do things that are just for PlayStation as well. Maybe that's how we finally get some answer for Bloodborne, which is still criminally left at 30 FPS on the PS4. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Rift, who says, I really hope this means Donkey Kong 64 isn't too far off. Well, that would basically be like the season finale, right, of NSO Donkey Kong releases. And, you know, I haven't haven't played that game in a long time. People keep telling me it's terrible, like it's a terrible 3D platformer. It has been a while. I do remember when it came out, my friend got it and he's like, you need to have this expansion pack. That's how big this game is. And then I find out later on that it was just some issue they couldn't resolve. Rare, and they were like, whatever, ship with the expansion pack, that's how we'll fix it. It's so funny to look back on those days as being younger and unaware of so much stuff like that. And then you learn and become very jaded years later as an adult. But still, I would revisit it just to see if it really is that bad or if it holds up maybe better than some people are expecting. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to take a look at the 30th anniversary PlayStation website and talk a little bit about the 160 million PS2 sales, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great holiday weekend and everything if you're celebrating. I'll be back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.